Okay, everybody, it's time to start. Let me welcome all of you on behalf of the Dean of the Faculty of Languages, Literatures and Cultures, Professor Barbara Chlibowicka-Węglarz. My name is Jarosław Krajka, and I have the pleasure and honor to be Deputy Dean for Education, but also a linguist and applied linguist, and also the person who pronounces the name that we have today, pretty much a couple of times every year, giving lectures on approaches and methods to teaching languages. So it is really my great pleasure to open this event. The event which we in the faculty call Helen Doron Day. And why is it day? It is not only a lecture, it is not only a lecture and a meeting with you, but it is also a very important event in terms of job orientation and career opportunities for our students. The second part of this Helen Doron Day is 12:30 room on the third floor when we have the career meeting for our students. I will not say much about Helen Doron because her fame, of course, is well known to all of us, and I will not say she's world famous because we all know that, but I will say that she's child world famous, and to prove that I will say a story. I have twins, 11-year-olds, and whenever they saw the poster on the faculty door, they said, "Dad, you need to have the picture with the Helen Doron because our friends attend the school and this will really put up our prestige in class if you have it." So we are really proud to have you, Helen, here. It's a great opportunity for all of our students and the faculty. And it's great that we have also Helen Doron teachers and students. So it's great to have this as a kind of unifying, uniting event for different circles, different people who are involved in multilingualism and language teaching. And to properly welcome you, Helen, I give the floor to Professor Zbigniew Pastuszak, Vice Rector for Cooperation, who will say a couple of words on behalf of Rector Dobrowolski.
Thank you, Professor Jarosław. Ladies, mostly, and a bit few gentlemen, welcome. On behalf of our rector, Professor Radosław Dobrowolski, and myself, for sure, it is my great honor and privilege to very warm welcome in this hospitable conference room of the Faculty of Philology, different philologies. Such an institution, women institution, Ms. Helen Doron, the Helen Doron, as can I say. I wish, firstly, Helen, I wish a profitable stay and profitable speech to all the audience. As you can see, there is plenty of people interested in your method and the process of English language learning of younger generation. I myself, I start from Russian language in the so-called, not Helen Doron, but some Russian maybe author method, because I had the opportunity to meet my colleagues in the very early young age speaking Russian, so I can speak Russian as fluently as I wish to speak in English. So I wish you all the best here, and thank you that you are here with us, and I'm very interested in your speech. So good luck. Thank you very much.
No, it's okay. Is this working? Can you hear me?
Yes, it's pretty much working. Just one important thing, Helen, before we start, one housekeeping announcement. You might not have noticed that we are in the peaceful mood, but we are in wartime mode, which means that due to governmental restrictions, we need the names and the signatures of the people who are our guests to university. This is so-called Bravo level restrictions, so the attendance lists will be circulating around, and we kindly ask all of you who are not our students and not our staff to put your names on those lists. We are sorry for this inconvenience, but this is the official regulation that we have imposed by the government. So now, over to you, Helen.
Thank you very much.
I don't know if you wish this one.
I think I can be heard, right? No? I need to use, this is not working? Okay. It's not working. But this is working? Okay. Okay. So, I'm looking at all of you, and I'm very honored and happy to be here, and that was a wonderful greeting I got to begin with. Thank you very, very, very much. And I'm looking at the wall behind me, and I haven't learned Latin for something like 50-something years, and I'm guessing it means something like whoever is happy is very fortunate or something like that. And this is what really the whole methodology is about. It's about happiness, it's about fun in learning, it's about a happy education for children. And I say that in the light of the fact that it might be almost obvious to you, because our methodology has been in the country now for 22 years. And it came in at a time when people didn't think that young children should be learning English. And now it's obvious. And there's other countries where they still believe that education, if it's not hard, if it's not an effort, if they're not sitting behind tables, it's not proper education, and that's how children should learn, and that attitude still exists. So let's talk a little bit about what is the Helen Doron methodology and how it connects to science. Because I introduced it many years ago based on what we knew then, but science has researched so much more. And I'd actually like to start by showing you a very short video showing 6-year-olds in one of our kindergartens, because we also have what we call academies, excuse me. In academies in some countries, these are kindergartens and sometimes schools and sometimes even creches, which are full-time day, not afternoon classes. So this is showing you what kids can really do and where they can get to, and easily and effortlessly. So I want to start by showing that. Okay. These are 6-year-olds. It's not working, it was before.
You should always get even with your friends.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Okay, next one. Betray your friends. Betray your friends. Should you always betray your friends? Or never betray your friends? Girls, can you tell me, can you read or say your sentence? You should.
We should never betray your friends.
Boys and so young, what do you think? We should. You should always betray your friends? So if a friend does something mean to you, you want to do something mean back?
Yeah.
You think that's okay?
Yeah.
You think that makes a good friendship? It's a hard word.
Mention.
Mention, very good.
Oh.
Mention. Who thinks they know what mention is? Or past tense. How would I make this past tense?
Mentioned.
Very good. Mentioned. And tell me, I'm going to say a word. You tell me if it's mentioned on this piece of paper, okay? Trap. Is trap mentioned on here? Show me. Very good, So-young. Yeah, say trap is mentioned here.
He betrayed them.
He betrayed them? How did he betray them? I forgot this part. How did he do that?
Go say.
And it's today to say we're sorry. And it's today to make amends. And it's today to try to turn back time. Opinion first, hit that nerve. After down the street, hold it.
Okay, just to give you a feel of what young kids can do. Okay, so where are we? Who are we? We're in sync with effective teaching and 21st century learning skills. Our goal is to provide educational excellence, enjoyment and creativity through unique methodologies, materials and technologies benefiting children everywhere. We're going to be talking about the science behind our programs, bilingualism, the methodology, and more. A little bit about the science. Educational neuroscience is all the talk today, and neuroscience explores how and why successful teaching strategies work by developing a greater understanding of how the brain processes information. It explores the relationship between education and brain sciences and cognitive sciences and child psychology. It ties everything in. I don't know how many billions of neurons children have at birth, and it changes all the time. I don't think anybody really knows, but it's an awful lot. And it's present from birth. But actually, within the early pregnancies, about 250,000 brain cells are produced every minute. If you can imagine that, it's really mind-boggling. And within a few months of birth, it's billions and billions and billions of neurons. And the brain eventually eliminates connections that aren't made because the neurons are useless if they're not connected to each other. Let's have a look at about the brain architecture. Oh, sorry, let's go back a moment. Previous slide. There we go. The older we get, the less we're able to learn. And we're going to be looking into this. It becomes much more difficult to learn, and the brain architecture is formed with the billions of neurons that have to connect between each other. Now, something very interesting is, I think most of you know this research. Can I see a show of hands? Those of you who know this research, the critical period effect done by Johnson and Newport in 1989, I believe it was. Nobody? Okay. It's very interesting. It's research that's been done and redone. It shows the connection between age of learning and the results as an adult. Until what age, and it shows until what age people can learn grammar as a mother tongue. Grammar, not accent, not vocabulary, grammar, to mother tongue level. Okay, so what they did was they took 42 subjects who were of Korean or Chinese origin. And each of these subjects were postgraduates at a university in the States. I think it was Iowa in the States. And they'd all arrived in the States aged somewhere between 3 to 39 when they first arrived and stayed in the States. And they were given 270 sentences that represented 12 grammatical structures. Now, 50% of these 270 sentences were correct, and 50% were incorrect. They had a yes-no button. They heard it, it went fast, yes, no, correct, etc. The result was, although all these were educated people, they'd most of them been there since reasonably early childhood, only those who derived between the ages of 3 to 7 could speak English or could understand English as a mother tongue. They got it right. They didn't really fast that they knew it. And actually they did the same as the native speakers, you could say. At the age of 8 already, there's a significant decrease in their understanding of grammar. These are all postgraduates again at a university. Age 11, it's gone down again. And you see, really, from age 17 even more, it's downhill from the age of 8. So the importance of learning at an early age is very great, but the methodology is also important, something which we're going to see as well. Okay, so how do we learn? Just very quickly, without going into great details. Neurons are connected under the conditions that there are enough sparks or stimulations, and when a nerve impulse reaches the synapse at the end of the neuron, it cannot pass directly onto the next one. As you can see here, it can't pass directly onto the next one. Instead, it triggers the neuron to release chemicals. And the chemicals, I always have to do this to remember the names between the chemicals. The chemicals that go across, they're neurotransmitters that are made, for example, of dopamine and endorphins, and they are stimulated to move through fun, through novelty. This is what stimulates these neurons to connect. And it's a reward system in the brain that triggers it. Something they don't know, something that's new, something that's incredibly fun will release these chemicals which allow these neurotransmitters these are the neurotransmitters to allow the synapses to connect. As I was saying, this is synapse. And what we repeat, and we strengthen the signals, when we do it again and again, we are making stronger and more condensed neuro connections. And this is very, very important. And multisensory learning, fun, bring a flood of chemicals that allow these neurons to connect. Let's have a look at this.
A child's experiences during the earliest years of life have a lasting impact on the architecture of the developing brain. Genes provide the basic blueprint, but experiences shape the process that determines whether a child's brain will provide a strong or weak foundation for all future learning, behavior, and health. During this important period of brain development, billions of brain cells called neurons send electrical signals to communicate with each other. These connections form circuits that become the basic foundation of brain architecture. Circuits and connections proliferate at a rapid pace and are reinforced through repeated use. Our experiences and environment dictate which circuits and connections get more use. Connections that are used more grow stronger and more permanent. Meanwhile, connections that are used less fade away through a normal process called pruning. Well-used circuits create lightning-fast pathways for neural signals to travel across regions of the brain. Simple circuits form first, providing a foundation for more complex circuits to build on later. Through this process, neurons form strong circuits and connections for emotions, motor skills, behavioral control, logic, language, and memory during the early critical period of development. With repeated use, these circuits become more efficient and connect to other areas of the brain more rapidly. While they originate in specific areas of the brain, the circuits are interconnected. You can't have one type of skill without the others to support it. Like building a house, everything is connected, and what comes first forms a foundation for all that comes later.
Everything's connected, and you cannot have one skill that isn't connected to another. It's very interesting, isn't it? Multisensory learning. Neuroimaging studies have shown that there's greater amount of activities where many different senses are used at the same time. So when sitting kids behind desks when they're just writing or just doing doesn't give multisensory input. It has to be done here and there for the type of output we're looking for today, but it shouldn't be our focus. And babies learn more through multi-sensory learning than they do through single sensory systems. And children naturally use all of their senses when exploring their environment. So it's a very natural process. So let's look at bilingualism now. And let's have a look at another very short film about the linguistic genius of babies. So we all know the benefits of bilingualism. There's different types of bilingualism. There's knowing a language really well, and then there's true native bilingualism, which is knowing it as a native speaker. And that's the ideal one, and that's what we're aiming for when we start teaching kids before the age of 7. But we all know it brings to greater employment, greater academic performance, improved cognitive flexibility, general reasoning and concept formation, heightened attentiveness, interactivity and listening skills. Bilinguals have many, many advantages. Research that was done by Kovacs and Mailer show that even before they can speak, bilingual children develop stronger executive functions. Executive functions means the set of cognitive processes that are necessary for the cognitive control of behavior. And it means that children, if they can control their cognitive behavior, their executive functions better, they will have better outcomes. That means that they can achieve their goals much easier. And children raised in bilingual environments have to learn roughly, they learn twice as much as their monolinguals. It's not that they learn each language less, they're learning 2 languages, and that's not a problem. I actually have grandchildren that are trilingual. Here's one of my grandchildren when he was 26 months, switching easily between English, Korean and Hebrew. Here we go. They are plastic.
No plastic.
The plastic, can you see it's plastic?
Plastic.
Plastic.
No.
Plastic, yes.
Plastic. No.
What sort of birdie is it? It's
A
a
baby tea.
booby birdie. Yes, it's a booby birdie.
Yes, yes, yes.
No, no, no.
Yes, yes, yes.
No, no, no.
זה של מי זה?
אמא.
זה של אמא?
כן.
מה זה?
זה של רוני.
זה של רואני?
כן. אתה עושה קטע מקו. אמא 이거 아닌데. 엄마 이거 안 먹고 아닌데. 엄마 이거.
이거는 싸박 거야.
이거 갈게. 엄마 여기 놀러 갈래.
놀러 가봐. 그러면.
You can see the ease, and it's obvious. It's not hard for these kids. It's so obvious. And I've seen many, well, he's got two siblings already, and they're also switching easily between languages. Okay, so let's have a look at the new methodology. I started 27 years ago, and I've given my life to developing a methodology that gives children the very best opportunity for learning. Because I always think it's such a waste of a childhood, because this is the time when they want to learn. It's a time they learn easily. It's just they can learn as much as we can present to them in an easy, consistent manner. So I had an idea of how to do this. I was inspired by a Japanese man called Shinichi Suzuki. And my daughter, this is my daughter, she's 42 already, but here she was at the age of 4, learning the violin. And Suzuki said children should learn violin the way they learn their mother tongue. First they should learn to hear it and understand it and feel it. Then they should learn to speak it, i.e. play it. And only later should they learn to write it or read it, notes. So he had children 2 years old playing the violin, and it's taught all over the world. I'm sure you have it in Poland as well. And he said, I teach it like a language, repeated hearing, the music's in their head, and they're motivated by a specially trained teacher with positive reinforcement. And I said, if Suzuki's teaching the language of music, why aren't we teaching the music of language? What's wrong with us? Why don't we have it? And I was sure somebody was doing it already. And I started looking around the world for the right methodology of somebody who was doing this. And it took me, this is pre-internet, this took me on many books, many people, many conversations around the world. And one of the people was Glenn Doman in the Institutes for the Achievement of Human Potential. And Glenn Doman's a physical therapist. Well, he's since died. He worked with a guy called Carl Delicato, and he was an educational psychologist, and they were dealing with injured adults, and they went down in age. They could have been injured from war, or they could have been born injured, or they could have had an accident. They were dealing with injured adults. One day, a little boy called Tommy was brought to him. Tommy was 2. He was in a wheelchair, and he'd been told by doctors that he was going to be a vegetable all of his life. His brain functioning, he was brain damaged, severely brain damaged. His parents were told to put him in an institute so that they could focus on the other children and not have to spend all their time on him. The parents didn't accept this, and they were looking for a way out. And Glenn Doron said, well, we can get him physically active, which was fantastic, because sitting in a wheelchair meant that the organs don't get stimulated and they eventually collapse and die. So they said yes, and his methodology had the kids spending half a year learning how to pull themselves across a room on their hands, and then another half a year to a year of crawling on all fours, and then another year or so of learning to stand up, and they took Tommy through these stages. And Tommy, when he came back at the age of 3 and he was putting himself across the room, his father said his mother's taught him to read words. And Glenn Doron thought that he's a bit of a crazy, this guy, kid's brain damaged. And he came back when he was crawling, and they said his mother's taught him to read sentences. Glenn Doron ignored it. Came back at the age of 4 when Tommy was walking, said he's reading books. He reads magazines, and then he wrote something on the board, and the kids sped read it and laughed. And Glenn Doron said, well, why didn't you tell me? You know, and they spent days and weeks trying to work out how this vegetable became a genius. Would he have become a genius anyhow? No, of course not. He'd probably have died within a few years. Is it nature versus nurture? He saw how strong the environment was here, and they also travelled across the world to see in various countries what was making children learn things early. And they said there is some nature in it, but there's an awful lot of mainly nurture. And Glenn Doron, they said the brain growth is until the age of 6. Well, it's probably till the age of 7 and what we've seen in linguistic research, but this is what he said. He talked about the importance of stimulation for neural pathways and the intensity, frequency, and duration of the stimuli in order for them to work, in order for them to have an effect on the body. Talked about crossing the midline, patterning. These are all things we use in our classes, by the way. We start with what we call a brain jog. It's a form of brain gym to stimulate the brains. We have in our classes intensity, frequency, and duration. I will explain it in a minute. And he said something very important. Success brings about motivation. Up to now, teacher had always said, you want to be successful, be motivated. Be motivated. Some people are intrinsically motivated, but success brings motivation. When we sit in a class, and when you're sitting in a class and you speak up and somebody says to you, no, you got it wrong, no means no stupid. It always does. It means no stupid, even if you say it nicely with a smile on your face. So this is why we go through teacher training, to learn how to correct in the right way and remotivate at the same time. Now, language is the most complicated of all skills. It's the most complex of all skills, yet children do this innately and superbly if they're exposed correctly. And soon we'll have a look at what the correct exposure is. They are hardwired for learning language up to the age of 7. And I saw it on my own father. My father was an immigrant from Germany to England. He arrived at the age of 10. His younger brother was 6. His younger brother was the perfect British gentleman. My father always had a German accent, very slight, and his grammar was never perfect, although I never noticed. But so I was told. And brain stimulation plays a major role in brain growth. And most brain growth, not all of it, but most of it is in the first 6-7 years of life. These are the critical years for learning. And this is what we do. Let's have a look at the principles behind Helen Doron English, which I started up 37 years ago. The most important thing was to learn like a mother tongue. And for this, how does a baby learn? Well, first of all, he hears a lot. But he doesn't just hear mumble in the background. Parents speak what we call motherese. Sorry, fathers. Parents speak motherese. That means it's slower, it's more emphatic, the tone is normally higher, and it's to help. They hear it again and again. And one day, baby opens his mouth and says, "Mama," and mummy goes, "Hey, this is fantastic," and baby didn't quite expect such an enthusiastic response, but thinks, well, I did that well, and I'm going to keep doing it because they like it. And believe you me, they're thinking that. And so that continues. What happened? He got positive reinforcement. But if we look back at our synaptic gap and neurotransmitters, remember that if we repeat and strengthen the signals, we help create stronger, a more condensed neural connection. Repetition leads to the creation of neural pathways. And we have audio tracks played in the background at home while the child's eating, playing, going to bed. Doesn't have to pay attention, but when the child arrives in the class, the child has the songs, has the rhymes, has the dialogues in his head, doesn't know what they mean. The teacher's job, through games and activities and fun and movement and reading and writing according to the level of the kid, is to teach the meaning of what's already in his head. It went straight to long-term memory. Spontaneously speaking, they open their mouths and start speaking. I remember in my early days of teaching, asking kids, "Where did you get your English?" And they said, "From you." And I go, "Really?" Couldn't believe it, you know, but they fill in the gaps. They work it out for themselves. They're very clever. Okay, and positive reinforcement. Our teachers are trained to give positive reinforcement so the children are motivated because they're always successful. And we need a stress-free environment for that. We know that children learn better when they don't have stress. A negative environment will create a negative impact. And we want positive emotions that are associated with their learning because they will learn better. A third one is fun learning. We know that fun's important. We know that fun's important for the neural connections. These neurotransmitters aren't going to let those chemicals go out if it's not fun. Kids' minds going to go off in different directions. They'll be thinking of different things, but songs, games, apps, everything that's together creates it. And we also teach in each lesson 25% material that's new, but totally new. It can't be that we're just teaching it in a new way. 75% of the material is old material being taught in a different way so that it captures their attention. But 25% is always totally new. I remember 30-something years ago I was teaching a class and I had a 2-year-old in it. He was clearly hyperactive, although we didn't know that at the time. He didn't sit still for a moment when the other kids were sitting in front and looking at flashcards and they're moving the way I wanted them to. He was just circling the class like an aeroplane the whole time. But every time I brought in the stuff that's totally new, this aeroplane landed and sat and lapped it up. And then he was off around the class like an aeroplane again. They need the new. They need the new. That's very much a part of what they're doing. So when it's neuroimaging and neurochemical research says that superior learning takes place when classroom experiences are enjoyable and relevant to their lives and interested. And we do small group learning. Now, We also do large group learning as well. We have both. But there are advantages to small group learning. It's the attention. And we have a framework for 3 months to 19 years for joyful learning. That's what it's all about. It's about joyful learning. All learning should be joyful. All learning should be fun. I wish I had this method. I'm learning Korean at the moment. I believe in lifelong learning, and Korean's absolutely fascinating. Besides that, the Korean side of the family don't seem to speak English. I'm talking about the adults, not the children, who speak perfect English. So I need to communicate. It's not very joyful, but I'm doing my best with that. Joyful learning is important for children. That's what motivates them. It's fun. They love coming. With our kindergartens, they take the children on a Saturday to show that it's closed because the children are insisting on going. So we have many different courses. We're not going into them. Right from babies up, our teachers meet the highest standards. At any given time, we have well over 5,000 qualified teachers. We must have trained tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of teachers already, but people get older, people go on to other things as well. And it's really important. Here's a very short movie from our teacher trainers. We have teacher trainers in different countries. Poland has 6 teacher trainers, actually, because we have a need for teacher training and seminars. This is from one of our teacher training conferences. You'll see that teacher training conferences are a celebration in themselves. Teacher trainers are from all over the world, from all the different countries. They're a happy crowd. Some of you may have recognized, if any of you are Helen Doron teachers here, may have recognized your teacher trainers there. So it's natural, it's a unique methodology, and it's based on research. There's babies, I'm not going through all the courses, I just want to emphasize one course because it's unique, no one else is doing this, because we believe in this. We start with babies. Fantastic music, great rhymes, great interactions, and they are picking it up. Nothing learns faster than a baby. And we also use baby sign language because we know that babies can express themselves before they can verbalize through the sign language. They're understanding English and they're signing for it or understanding the signs. They've shown that children who do sign language, not through us in general, if they learn sign language without needing to be deaf or dumb for doing so, they'll understand more words at 15 months, and it goes through into first and second grades, and their results go on afterwards. It is another form of doing so. We work in accordance with the stages of child development. Of course, everything is worked through this. We do the social and the emotional and everything that's needed. we teach in a spiral manner. This is probably quite obvious to people in Poland. But if you go into places like China, they use a mastery method. You keep doing it and doing it and doing it and doing it until they're 100% sure you know it. Deathly method. And very slow, but that's the way they do it. I mean, but even words can be learned in various ways. Most words in English have different layers of meanings, and they're brought out at different times. We all know that a train is a line of carriages. What else can a train be? What else can a train be? Come on, somebody. Yes? Training, yes, to train something to make it go in a way you want it to go. Anything else? Okay, it can mean to become physically fit, to train. Train of thought, that's an analogy in itself, metaphor. It can be the material attached to the back of a formal dress. Queen Victoria had a train that went behind her, and it wasn't a choo-choo train. To train a person or a plant to grow in a particular direction. So there's many different layers to words, spiral learning, and we have a focus on this as well. We have so many learning materials, so many stories, animations, songs, we said thousands. Music and dance are such an important part of what we do. We have values of caring for the communities, all built into our material for caring for animals and appreciation. And those of you who don't know me well will know that I'm an advocacy for animal rights as well as human rights. And I'm a long-term vegan, and with a belief in this. And things are, the compassion and love is written into the materials because I think that the kids should be happy, compassionate, kind people, and then we won't have wars, huh? English, we have our apps. We have something called Teen Buzz Radio. I think many of you might benefit from it. It's a simpler English, slightly simpler for teens, really from age tweens and teens. And we have its 24/7 radio programs, but the live programs are a few hours a day. And we have, many of our students have their own programs as well. On this, it's an internet. If you look up Teen Buzz Radio, you will find it. We have Kangi Club Interactive. We have many different ways. Now, this is very interesting research. I'm almost at the end, don't worry. This is very interesting research. It's done a couple of years ago by Judith Kovacs. She's a Hungarian researcher and professor and doctor. She was evaluating the effectiveness and success of 4 different early English programs used in Hungarian kindergartens. They were used for larger groups. And she found Helen Doron English to be the most effective methodology. And what she said was her conclusions. Well, one of the groups was once a week, but we were teaching once a week. One of the other groups was once a week, another was twice a week, another was every day. So they were 4 different methodologies, and she said that the success of the Helen Doron methodology and the materials, which was so much better than the others, even those who were learning every day, he said it was the curriculum, the specially trained, it was a very clear curriculum. The key factor as well is that they have access to a well-designed, elaborated curriculum with a clear purpose, and also the teacher training and the specially trained teachers. And there's no direct relationship between the time spent learning English and the results. The success factor was the curriculum and the teacher training and the methodology. This was done in Germany. The parents were very, very, very pleased with the methodology. And today, at a glance, this is where we are in the world. We've taught over 3 million children. Very quickly, we have other programs in the world. The two programs that exist in Poland are Math Riders, special mathematics from the age of 2, but again through fun and interaction and doing and real world situations, and Helen Doron English. These are the two methodologies that we have in Poland. But in other countries we have an academy which is a bilingual academy, daytime learning, and this is monolingual, just English, the Helen Doron International. Math Riders, I'm not going into it, academy or international. And we need to look forward, and we can't teach for tomorrow with yesterday's methodologies. This says, in a day before yesterday's schools, yesterday's teachers prepare today's students to solve the problems of tomorrow, which is of course ridiculous. We need to change the system from within, introduce the right methodologies, make learning fun, interactive, doing, and we're not going into this either, but 21st century skills are the 12 abilities that today's students need to succeed in their careers. And this is a strong focus in everything we do. And I hope we have a time for a couple of questions. Thank you very much. Questions, please. I love questions, so please, make me happy. Was it also clear or also unclear? Somebody's got to get the ball rolling.
So I'll start perhaps.
Yes.
Just,
thank you.
Let's encourage other people. I'm just wondering, that's of course a very tiny thing, but it used to be Helen Doron Early English and now it's Helen Doron English. Doesn't mean that you're reaching out to all the students as well, or is it perhaps just that the name was too long?
Well, my main emphasis, and what I spent years and years and years doing, and so did my husband, who worked alongside me, and all the others that worked with us, we spent most of our working days at the beginning explaining why young children can learn another language. And of course it's absurd to have to say that, because there are about 6,000 active languages in the world today in about 200 countries. So obviously most children are multilingual, obviously. But here in Europe, where apart from somewhere like Switzerland, which has many different languages, they're not used to the idea of children speaking more than one language. And isn't it too hard for him? Isn't it better that he plays? Isn't it? No, do it now. Do it now, because A, they'll love it. I mean, obviously, if you're going to sit them behind desks at the age of 2 or 3, and I've seen it done in Korea. I saw kindergartens with 3-year-olds just sitting behind desks all day and hardly a play area. Horrible. But obviously, the most important thing was early English. We just needed to persuade people that they could. This was going to make a better future for the kids. These kids are going to be more capable of doing anything if they did that. But the ages went up because these children needed to continue. But even, let me give you a story. I had a kid, came to me at the age of 11. He didn't know any English and he was in school and he couldn't follow anything. His name was Jaron. And I looked at him and I thought, my goodness, he's so behind. So what I did, it was my very first centre, we're talking about 35 years ago. And I said, okay, we will have one private lesson a week with your schoolwork. You will come and have one group lesson with another group of kids your age. And you will be my helper teaching the younger kids, AIE, so we could have lots of fun and fill in the gaps. But he never came with his homework to the private lesson. And one day I went to his house to teach because he wasn't feeling well. And I said, I don't want you to miss your lesson. I'm coming. And I said, well, now you've got no excuse. Bring your homework. And he said, went upstairs, so the kid living above him, came down with the homework. And I said, well, why don't you have it? He said, because I'm not allowed in the English classes. He never told me. And I said, why not? And he said, because I have learning disabilities and they give me Hebrew classes at the same time. And I was furious. I said, well, what's going to happen next year? When will you ever start learning English? He said, I'll just be thrown in the class and they expect me to just manage. I was furious. I spoke to his father. I said, get him into a class now. Right now. Don't let them do this. And he did that. I taught this kid for 2 years. Then I moved my centre out to Carmiel. The business was growing. I didn't have time to focus on a learning centre anymore. And I didn't have the idea of a manager at that time. I just wanted to focus on getting materials out and looking after teachers. So that's what I was doing. I met his father years later in a supermarket. And he said to him, and I said to him, how did Johan do in his school leaving exams? And he said, oh, he did brilliantly in English. He did almost the highest level of English and he got 89%. I said, that's amazing. Who was his private teacher after me? And he said, nobody. He managed after that. And he said they wanted to put him in a lower level English. And he turned around to them and he said, no, I'll take the higher level because Helen said I can. He remembered that all those years later. And I don't even remember saying it. What you say so affects children. And why did we start with early? Because early is important. He'd never have been in that situation if he'd have started early. But we could still get him out of it at the age of 11 and even onwards with a positive idea. So we dropped the early and it became Helen Doron English. Thank you.
Who next?
No? Oh, haha, throw the microphone. Okay, we're almost there, for those who can't see that the microphone's being passed.
Okay, so is there a possibility of a young child which is bilingual to stop speaking because of the confusion between two languages?
Okay, did you see my grandson at the age of 26 months?
Yeah, I saw.
Was he confused?
No, but actually, is there any possibility that...
Children don't get confused. You have a thing called code switching, in which the children do use some of the vocabulary from one language in another, and it's normal. You know, you'll be giving a sentence in English and you'll throw in a word in Polish, for example, if this was a Polish bilingual child, because that word is more relevant to his life. Children don't get confused with two languages if it's taught in the correct way. With a methodology like this, there's no confusion, there's two mother tongues. When I ask my children what their mother tongue is, they answer me that they have two.
Okay, that's so nice.
There isn't any confusion. There are confused teachers or professors that are teaching these things. They're not confused. Or the methodology in which the child doesn't have this consistent mother tongue input. Consistent mother tongue input will not lead to confusion. Thank you.
Thank you. Who's next?
Who's next?
So maybe that's enough, because we're at 11:30 already.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so thank you very much for that. Thank you, Helen, once again, and big round of applause to you.
Thank you.
And before, yes, this could of course last and last, but time is pressing us. Before you leave, guys, a word of announcement. The meeting is 11:30, not 12:30. It was my mistake, but hopefully you didn't listen to me. So 11:30, pretty much right after we leave here, there is a meeting with Helen Doron English trainers and managers for all of you who are interested in finding employment or getting the skills. And Helen, I hope you don't mind that if anybody wishes to have a picture with you.
Of course.
Then, well, Helen is all yours. Of course, perhaps not literally, but metaphorically, she's all yours for photos. And once again, thank you, Helen. Thank you, Helen Doron people. Thank you, students. I think it's been a great event, and thank you very much for coming here.
I'd like to thank the university for hosting me. It's been a true pleasure, and I feel very appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you once again.
Thank you.